All right. So, hey everyone, welcome to the session today. We're super excited to have you. Brigitte and I have been working on this for just a few weeks, and when I met her initially in my readings, I was just so inspired by her work. She's been doing this for 40 plus years and has researched the ins and outs of the earth of this subject. So super excited to bridge that practice over with you guys and share some knowledge. So to just begin here, thought we'd do a quick icebreaker. Love to hear, in the chat, just where are you guys calling from today? And if there's anything you want to learn, please share with us. Love to give this a quick second just to see where the energy is coming from today. Savannah. Hey, Matt, Seattle. Philadelphia. Northern Ireland, Milwaukee, Manchester, Dublin, California, Brazil, Toronto, Fremont, Oakland, Charlotte, New York City, future developments in the discipline. We'll definitely see that today. Awesome. I'm calling from San Francisco, and today what I hope to learn is to really see what happens when you fuse academia and industry. That's something that I think is going to be really exciting. Brigitte, is there anything you hope to learn today?
No, I think it's wonderful. It's just, yes, it's all over the world. I like that. And by the way, I am not in Paris. I am in Metz, which is a town east of Paris. Beautiful cathedral near the Luxembourg. Because this is where I have my little one, because I'm a grandmother now. I used to be the mother of all designers for many years, and now I'm a grandma. Okay.
Yeah, from mother of design management to grandmother of design.
Yeah. And I thank you, dear, for organizing that. It's just lovely for me.
Awesome. All right, we have some from India and also learning past management experience can inform future practice. Perfect. So just quick logistics today. Submit your questions as we go through this. We'll be monitoring. We'll have time for audience Q&A at the very end. The session's recorded so we can share it with folks who couldn't make it today and also for your revisitation. And if you have any learning, share with us on Twitter. We're simply at design_exec. And we'll be sharing this all back with Brigitte as well. So to get us started, I wanted to share this letter. It was funny when I put these slides together, little did I know Brigitte has been referencing this letter for a long time too in her research work. And I have myself, when I met Tom Hardy at SCAD, he was the second corporate design director at IBM. And when I saw this letter, it really helped anchor the history and understanding of where design and management comes from. And so the context behind this letter is Thomas J. Watson, who was the CEO of IBM at the time, published this letter of corporate policy to the whole company in 1966 of December 20th. And the first statement says, good design is good business, full stop. I thought this was so special because this is really the first time you hear from a corporate CEO of a public company say and state this so forcefully and clearly, and how the imaginative use of design helps sell our products. Pleasant, efficient work areas contribute to better morale and productivity. And dramatic design in print materials, you can see the time error of the time increases our messaging impact. What's really exciting about this is it already starts to weave the dots between the benefits of design and so many other facets of business beyond just styling and aesthetics, but into things like morale, productivity, products and design, and how this weaves into the whole program of what design management soon will come to be. And so, Brigitte, do you have any words on this letter yourself?
Well, I've been quoted. I think it's just the first time I actually see the letter. So it's a good emotion, because I've been quoting, everyone has been quoting, good design is good business. And I agree on that, because that's really what I'm trying to find explanations and correlation and, scientific proof and evidence on good design is good business. That's basically my definition of design management in a way.
Awesome. And so just some context on where we've really come from, and just reading through Brigitte's research, I think first and foremost, designers, unlike many of us in tech today, have had a generally very low interest and even rejection of management. Two, we've had generally very little exposure to business education as designers. Three, the practice of in-house design management is relatively new as a discipline. Four, access to codified knowledge in the executive level of design management has been limited. I hope we can change this. And five, organizational memory of design management itself is very fragile and nascent. And this is grounded by the fact that most design executives today are first-time design executives, and many companies themselves are also having first-time design executives. So the memory is really new, it's very fresh, and it's also very fragile because the first experience really affects so many other following events. And so when I think about one of the quotes I heard in my field research with chief design officers was, one said very clearly, most of us are first-time design executives, whereas our peers in engineering, marketing, finance, legal have held other executive roles before. And the design executive role is less defined and clear to others and to designers themselves. And so we thought in this session, we really want to help focus on the last bit there. How do we make this a little bit more clear and more defined for designers themselves? And this begins with understanding where our power really comes from. And so really, this is the purpose of what I'm trying to build here around the Design Executive Council, is to advance the state of design through design executive success. And one of the things I observed here was, when we look at the talent pipeline for design management, how do we help more people cross these chasms more gracefully with more knowledge? And it's not always learning by failure. Of course, that's a really important part of this, but how do we make this whole ecosystem more accessible to other people and have the knowledge available to them? And so the tone of really setting this off was to bring Brigitte here to ground 40 years of learnings and insight into us practitioners in the industry. And where this all began was a few months back when I was finishing my master's, and Peter Merholtz, who I think might be in the session, featured, we did a podcast here to expose some of the research. And I mentioned, what is one book that I would recommend to others? And I mentioned Brigitte's book, Design Management. And I think most people have not actually heard of it in our sector of technology. And so I thought, what an opportunity to bring someone who's seen so much to help enrich our lives on the practice of design management. So a few months later, Brigitte and I are here in July preparing. And so Brigitte, I wanted to pass it over to you, just a little bit of an introduction here.
Okay. Are you going to the next slide, or should I say, yeah, okay. The thing that I wanted to mention is there is going to be a lot of concept and things, but it's all published. So be sure that you will have all the papers and everything if you want to have the detail of the paper. So we agree on the question of power, also because when you Google Brigitte on internet, over the years, the paper that is bestseller, I would say, is my European research and the paper, The Four Powers of Design. And this research was part of the European research that I did 20 years ago. But I would like to enlighten something that is, because part of you wants something, the new thing about design management. One of the very interesting new thing about design management right now is the connection and the bridge between a theory of power and leadership that was a century ago, Mary Kay Follett, and she's actually trendy again in business studies. And I found that interesting because in a way, she has been explaining another type of leadership in companies or corporation, which is not coming from top to bottom and hierarchy. It's really coming from the power of influence, and she talks about leadership with people instead of leadership over people, and I really think that summarizes very well the power of designers in organization. And you can quote, but I have a very good article about Mary Kay Follett theory and the way it is relevant in the design community. Now, next slide. Now, we prepare this idea of the 3 levels of decision in organization, and the 3 levels of decision are really, 3 levels of, I would say, design input in terms of, because you think of design management as a bridge between business studies and design studies, and the way I've been, doing my research was really, I used to be a manager for 10 years before being an academic, and I was a design manager in a way, but I did not knew that I was, but I became the best manager. So all my life, I have been really researching, why is it that I became the best manager? Because, and actually I was having, I had the opportunity to work with designers. I was a buyer at Au Printemps, that was my job first. So the whole question of all my research has been, why is it? What about this bridge between the conversation of 2 fields of research, business studies and design studies, and what is it that actually make me a better manager? And today maybe we talk about, the bridge the other way. What would be the way to put some management in your talent to make you a better designer in a way? And this idea is about thinking of your skills, your talent, that usually people will say more operational in terms of, executions and design tools, and also design disciplines, and forget that behind this discipline, behind what would say design output, what shape, whatever shape, and it could be UX, or it could be a packaging, or it could be a space, or whatsoever. Behind the actual design output, there is the input of design knowledge and design skills. And actually, people are more interested in your tactical skills in terms of methodology, for instance, and are more interested in the attitude and purpose-driven, for instance, but we talk later about that. But I just wanted to highlight the way that when you go to the board, you go up in the hierarchy in some ways in the decision system. You always have 3 levels of decision in organization. It's operational, tactical, and strategic. And maybe that will help you if you have this framework, which kind of skills for each decision level in organization. And that's different skills that are useful. So this is basically the book, the reference book that was in 2002, that took me about 3 years of my life, just, making a synthesis of everything that has been written in terms of design management and design value. But this book was also the second edition of my PhD. My PhD was 1985, and that was the first PhD in the world on design management value. And I had a wonderful life between 2002 and 2016 to customize the book in 10 languages. The book has not been translated; it has been customized in Japan. And you have the example in Farsi, which I really love. But the idea was to start master program all over the world based on this book. The students were looking in this book, and they were actually having the book in their own language, whatever, Chinese or Portuguese or Spanish, and it's still available. And also, if you are interested in some kind of language, I have the PDF of all the books now. But it really came from what we talk in the academia. It is a reference book, part of this book is my own research, but really it is a state-of-the-art reference of everything that has been published by all my peers in design management research. And at that time, I was in charge of the academic network of the Design Management Institute in Boston. I don't know if you're familiar with this organization, but I started 1983 until 2004, implementing the academic network of DMI.
Thanks, Brigitte. Just curious for audiences to know, since you wrote this book, how much has the field changed?
Well, the book is still relevant in, I would say, 100% of it. The thing that has changed is the context, not in a way, if I say, when we think in terms of science of design or business science, there is not a lot of change in the basics of the value chain and all the basic model of management. You can say that the context, the outside context that we have is changing, and we try to be more, for instance, more agile, to be more innovative, or to be more human-centric in some way. But this is really the context that is pushing organization to change their culture. But in terms of the way you manage the performance, the value, honestly, nothing is really, it's still relevant. Yeah. So it's just, because what is changing, and we have a paper about the 40 years of design management research, what has changed, and it is true, the way design is now part of the decision level. So, 40 years ago, it was more operational. Now, around 2000, it was more about innovation and tactical level. And now we see that designers are part of the strategic conversation. So I would not say that the basic of the field of design management has changed. What has changed is the level of decisions and where the designers can have an impact, and the way now people see your impact in the organization that are actually doing well design leadership and design management. And what is important in this slide is always there is this a change in design management focus, because there is a change of focus also in organization. So now it's more about customer experience okay, so that means that it's going to be also important in the design field. And I'm always trying to say that there is only one planet, and so designers are actually giving and applying their specific skills to organization. But in a way, all managers are silent designers. They actually do a lot of design decision, and sometimes without the skills of the designers. So the difference is between the trust and the way that people understand now that there should be some in-house designers. And it was not so much like that 40 years ago. It was more about external design, but the basics have not changed. What it is, what is your focus, your goal in terms of management, of good management, and then you put your design input into it. And we, as the design management researcher, we measure how we bridge there is the impact of putting designer skills into business skills, into the knowledge capital of an organization. And our work is about what does this change when you have designer inside an organization in terms of performance.
And given that you made this chart in 2009, and now it's 2022. Have you seen something more as the bottom part of this chart?
Well, you see, I mean, creative organization and new business model is really what we are, you know, and the buzz about design thinking and things that is happening all over the world is just what we are. I mean, we had, you know, this last year. For me, the future now is yours. I mean, you know, I'm an old lady, and you are inventing now this next step in a way. But I can still think that it's all about, you know, making the whole organization more creative. Basically, you know, there was, you know, design as product, process, and strategy. And what is happening now is designers helping the change of culture, which is strategic in organization. And this is happening now, you know. It's not only about new business model and the economic value of design, it's more about the substantial value of design in order to change the culture of the organization. But I will go in that with the model a little bit more in detail.
I think what's interesting is you kind of say basics haven't changed and they kind of stay constant, but the way it's applied through a role perspective evolves. So if we look at the middle of that chart, it says design role from product quality to today, think about new business models or even culture. But if you know, take some time to actually digest the research, it's interesting that so many of these basic fundamentals have not changed. No. That's really interesting is, you know, there's a timelessness to design value, but how it's applied is contextual.
For instance, let me give you an example from the academic world, you know. For instance, when I published a paper on innovation, it was 1994, and I published in the Journal of Product Innovation Management, 1994, about, you know, innovation management and things like that. It took us 2 years to be accepted in a research review in innovation management. Okay, so that was the first, I would say, special issue of a innovation management journal on design, and that was 1994. See, so in many ways, you know, I'm oh sorry, that is getting old, you know. It is 2006. The Journal of Product Innovation Management is 2006. So that was the first time that I would say academia from business in innovation accepted the idea that there might be something about design as actually something that could be relevant in innovation management. 2006, I was so sorry, 2006. So it's very, very close. Now what happened is you have people from business writing in strategic journal or in a business development journal about design. So it came from researchers coming from the design management field. And myself, I did a design school and I went to business. So I was this kind of person that got the two. But most of the time, I would say the first papers in innovation journal were really coming from people like me from the design community. Now we see papers that are written from people in marketing or innovation or strategy on design. So this is a big change because, you know, probably your generation, the 10 years to come, there will be a bridge of these two. Because if you publish in the design journal, people on strategy are not going to read the design journal. You see what I mean? And so we still have, you know, these two, I would say, the science is developing in two parallel routes, and there are only maybe one or two journals, the Journal of Creativity Management, for instance, the Journal of Innovation Management, and but maybe it's only the two. that are actually making the bridge between academia on the two. So yes, there is something about 20 years to have, when you think my PhD when in the 80s, and it took me 20 years to be in a actually innovation journal. I think it's going to take also another 20 years that these people in management accept that they have to give power and role and status and trust the people from design. And hopefully, in the end, we will have something that, is mixing the two.
Let's move on to we have a lot more content. So tell us about what this is.
This is really what is so important for all of us. It is about measure, because when you are in measurement, if you don't measure, you don't exist. So my idea when I did my PhD and when I did the European research 20 years later was about, I need to measure, so I'm going to ask CEO of companies only one question. What do you think the measure of, can you rank me 21 variables about where you put the value of design? Where is the power of design? Where is the impact of design? Now, these 21 variables are not my idea coming from my brain and say, okay, this is a synthesis of research that was done before. So it came from the state of the art of people that had been researchers in all these variables. I put all variables together and I say, I need something. I need some ranking. I need some cluster. I need to understand. What was so interesting in 2002, and that was really my wow moment as a researcher, and I could after that I could actually write the reference book because I had the format, because I had a framework, is that not all these variables are in the same field of management decisions. There are variables about the financial value of design. There are variables about the value for customers and market. There are variables about coordination, process, and the way actually you manage innovation, for instance. And there are variables about the future thinking, foresight. So it was very varied, but the first two variables are very clear. Its design creates a competitive advantage, or design is a core competency. This research put design in the management community, because being in business is about creating a competitive advantage. So if you say that design creates a competitive advantage, you say designers are managers. They are business people. They are really part, shareholders, stakeholders of the performance of the organization at the strategic level, because building a competitive advantage is actually the definition of strategy. So you see, now this was done in 2002 with 33 companies in Europe. I have done this research again with a colleague in Hong Kong last year, and all the variables are still relevant. There has been a change in the ranking. For instance, variable about, strategy are going, instead of being number 20, there are more, about number 14 or something like that. But also what is interesting is that in 2002, I asked CEOs of companies that got design awards all over Europe. In 2021, with my colleagues, we made the same research, but with chief design officers, because now we have, director of design, chief design officers in companies. And they agree on the 21 variable. We add another variable, which is designers participate in the strategic conversation. Now we could go to the slide, the next slide on the skills. Just a little bit about the story of that. I was in Brunel University in the UK at that time, and we had, undergraduate students and master students coming from all over the world. I thought it was a good context to actually test with students if they understood the difference between undergraduate and graduate, and why would they pay a lot of money? Because actually, these students coming from South Korea, all over the world, were paying a lot of money to get their master degree. And I wanted to really try to understand what was the shift between undergraduate and master level. So I'm not a specialist, though I've been, in design education for many years. I've never been a dean of a design school, that was not my responsibility. But I was really surprised that nobody has been thinking about, giving some vademecum or toolbox of skills for students at the end of their education in design. So they could be, instead of, selling their design discipline, a product designer or UX designer or something, they actually think, I have been working and I've been educated for about 4 or 5 years. I have some competency. I have some capabilities. I have developed these capabilities. So you have, 4 type, and obviously right now people are more interested in the attitude values of designer, which is the ability to take risks, to manage uncertainty, to be at ease with chaos. And obviously you can change your own table, but the whole idea is being sure that when you have the word design, you put skills and capabilities, which actually most of them, some are shared with manager and some are very specific to the design community. And usually I put them in italics, but I mean, we can discuss on that for hours. But actually that was done by the students, it was really, I gave a whole list or something, but that was interesting because it comes from the students of the Brunel University at that time. Next slide. So this is a Désignance model. That's basically, how my research has been transformed into a model, which I have tested with director of the design in France or all over the world. The whole idea, when I've been in 2000, when I've been asking the CEO, where do you put the value of design? There were very clear 3 clusters. Some would say it was value for the portfolio. Some would say it's value for the innovation process and the way for process and the way you organize things in the organization. So it's managerial value. And some would say it's about, thinking, foresight, and future thinking. And very clear, 33 companies, half of the CEO were actually putting the value in terms of management, 16 of them. And now the head at that time, Philippe Picot was head of Decathlon in France. He said, it's very nice, Brigitte, but I need something that is, on my computer every day. I have 160 designers to manage. I need to have a simple tool. And I took the opportunity to represent the research in the model of the Balance Scorecard, BSC model, which is the strategy path. It's a very, very common model in management. So because we demonstrated that design was strategic at the level of the portfolio, at the level of the process, and at the level of the culture, then you get the strategy path by Kaplan-Norton. And the way it works is that you start with the vision and the culture, which is number 3. Then you go to management and performance and process, you go to number 2. And then you go to 1, which is the portfolio. And all of this, at the end, you measure everything on number 4. So this is just a way to design visually the research that I've been doing before in with the companies European. But it's also a dialogue model, you know, because the whole idea was there is not 2 tribes. We need to find, you know, models. And I like models more than words. When we want to say, let's have a dialogue between two culture or something, and we need to use the management words and something like that. I believe theory matters, okay? So the balance scorecard is a very basic, and it's always very relevant. It explains the 4 steps of a strategy process. And then the designers can easily understand that they give value at each of the steps of the strategy path. And it's very simple to get, you know, then you get, with this, you get KPI, you get indicators at each of the quadrant. And Philippe was telling me, oh, it's so easy because I can put all of my project in different quadrants, and I can put my staff, and I can manage. So I understand if I want to be more strategic, I have to go more in the number 3 or something like that, you know. So it was just a tool, but now everybody's using that, you know. In a way, it's very simple, something to synthesize the way design brings value to the organization. Next slide.
I think one
And this
thing
is
for audiences, like, you know, this scorecard, Brigitte, in your research, you actually show different companies using it and how it's expressed. So I think that's something just interesting to know.
And this is part of the paper that you will see all over the world, you know, because that's my bestseller in a way, you know, the 4 powers of design. Okay, this is so important here. Basically, we talk a lot about, you know, the vertical axis, styling, process, and strategy or something. And you get this idea of the 3 different decision level. Okay, it's very important. Another thing which is sometimes forgotten in a way is that you have to adapt that to the culture, to the actual culture of companies. If you are a company that is still thinking of management as command and control, you will use this, okay, in terms of tools, because that's command and control. So maybe you have to command and control also design. Yeah? If you are going in a company that has understood management more as a collective action, the art of collective action, you will use different tools, always with the same impact, with the same result in getting the design to the highest level of decision. You see what I mean? But there are things you can do in a certain culture, and the things you can't do. You know, you really have to first audit the culture of the organization in order to adjust the tools of design management and design leadership. And the third culture is about managing change. This, I would say now, is really where we are now, because it's mostly not really change, I would say change of portfolio or change of, now, you know, the digital economy has changed everything, every industry or something. So this is basically now culture that understand. There are some culture now that really understand this massive change that we have right now. And of course, I've developed different tools in terms of managing their organization. It's more a network company. It's no more a hierarchy. There is a lot of new organizational design in order to adapt the culture to the digital economy and the sustainable economy. And but it is important because you can play with the culture, and you, most of the time, you change the culture of the organization, because you can say with this model, okay, you are a little too much management, command and control. And people now, they don't want to work in companies that are like that. They want, more flexibility. They want to be trusted. They want more autonomy in terms of staff. So you can help as designers changing the company towards something that is more dialogue, more about, a collaboration and open innovation. And again, it is a way to see your mindset as a management value, but as a strategic management value. Now, just to go back to the basics in terms of management, again, I said, you become strategic if you help the competitive advantage. Michael Pollan is the basics of what it is to be to define strategy using the value chain model. The value chain model has been transformed into something that is very trendy, which is, the business canvas or something like that. But this really is the original. And this is more powerful in a way to understand, because you can say, okay, this is an organization. Where do I put design? Where am I? Most of the time, people will put you on the what we call the primary activities down there, instead of upstairs, I would say, in the model, which is the support activities. And it's, of course, if you want to be at the tactical level and strategic level, you have to be on the horizontal of the value chain. And it's very important to negotiate, even if you are an outside design consultancy, to be sure that you get the right people in front of you that are in the support activities of the company. And okay, so that you have now 40 years of research about design brings a competitive advantage. And we, as researchers, we think as some kind of angel that are protecting you in terms of, now you don't trust us? Well, here it is, 40 years of research. Now you can choose or not. I mean, I remember when I started my academic career, it was the beginning of the marketing, for instance. And we were learning marketing with Philip Kotler, first book, and the book was still in English. It was not translated into French. Not all companies actually went into marketing right away. So it's still a choice for companies to actually think of design as a strategic tool. Now it is our, now I think, it is our maybe responsibility to say, well, whatever you choose, but we can go somewhere else. You think you can do that. But for instance, one thing that is very basic in terms of the subject of accessibility and empathy and dialogue, going from customer satisfaction to employee satisfaction is already strategic. So thinking any kind of UX project on both levels, market, organization, suddenly people trust you differently. And basically, it's just putting your same skills, empathy, ethno-design, research, sensorial research, just thinking of the human being as a holistic person. You apply that to upgrading customer satisfaction. You can do that with a process for the employee right away. Same way to think. And but if you do that, you build trust and managerial trust for design. And this is important. Another thing that is important, next slide, is it's more and more about blue ocean strategy and sustain competitive advantage. So there are companies that understand the competitive advantage. These companies are still thinking that what is important is design in the portfolio. companies that think design as a core competency, they think that design is a knowledge capital. And you have the VRIO model, which is VRIO model, that says design is knowledge, is part of the knowledge capital of the company. And it is difficult to imitate if it is inside the organization, the way you mix design with the decision process in organization, and you make something that is really unique for the company. What is important is that is not to be seen by your competitors, because competitors can see your product. Actually, if they want to see inside how it is actually done, the conversation with designers, how it is organized in terms of process, then you get what we talk the resource-based view of strategy, which is a sustained competitive advantage, meaning that it's difficult to imitate. And now what is happening with all the massive change that we have, companies are not thinking their competition in their industry now, because you see I don't know, take a company like Mars, for instance, that used to be in the food business or something, then went into, a pet food or something, and now are the leaders in clinics for animals. So you see, this is the way to think the strategy, not in the industry only, but to get this idea of having the specific skills so you can go in another industries, because you can apply what you have done in another industry and make you unique, is really what is important now. And this is where designers are so, the talent of designer is really there. We know that, you have the metaphor thinking. You can think of other fields where your abilities would be useful. And when you think now of the way companies are growing, they are not growing only in their industry. They are looking into industry and getting more conglomerate and okay. And I don't know how much time we have here.
We have about 9 minutes, so we have a little bit of time left, but want to leave
I'm just going very, 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 very rapidly.
Yeah, this is 1 hour is not enough. 40 years of learnings, and
yeah, well,
I think just
everything is published anyway. I'm still alive. We can make an individual Zoom, Anyway, but I like to share that was my last paper, and I call the designomics, because I think what is missing for us is to have a collective view. And I like the word designomics. It's the economics of our industries. And I like also I use the model of Kate Rayworth. I love it. I mean, the donut economic. I love this idea of the cake, with the hole in the middle, and say nobody should be in the hole, So we are protecting the life, so nobody is going in the middle, in the circle. And I think it's really, in a way, see what it is to be a good designer, to be able to think about the human, but also thinking of the human in terms of life-centric instead of, only human-centric and anthropocene, for instance. And the whole idea is say, okay, this is it, we do that. And we bring some kind of safe space. And this is the circle around where the design industry is actually a safe space for humanity. And but the whole idea behind this model was about, it's too difficult for people that are outside our world to understand what is design. There are, we invent a design discipline every 2 years or something. But if we could get some kind of model that we all agree that we are building from one context to another context in the middle, there is the design industry, and nothing has changed. Designers have always been trying to make a better world in a way, you know? So this whole idea of system view, collective view, something that we share. And it would be nice also that you share more the conversation with academia in a way, in the business community, in the practice, because that's the way, you know, these people from McKinsey or, you know, Accenture, or they actually are very active about conversation between academia and practice, and they nurture and they update and they talk and they, you know, and you know, my dream would be that we should have, you know, more of these talks in a way. So we are open to questions, I think now. I'm sorry, I've been too long.
Let's see. Is there anything left on this slide just before we end it off here, Brigitte?
No, I mean, you know, just the idea of the system and we go from one world to a better world.
Yeah.
And maybe something about, you know, takeaway or something. And I leave it to you, dear, and maybe.
Yeah. You know, I thought was really interesting is, you know, Brigitte's model there, it goes a little bit beyond what we're used to, which is user-centric, customer-centric, and she expands it a little bit from a life-centric standpoint. So it could start from like a user research to employee to then, you know, the stakeholder level and the life level. And I thought that was a really mindset shift for me to embrace as a word that's still familiar to us. I thought what was interesting is, you know, that mindset shift that I also saw in my research on number 2, which is moving away from just saying pure, I'm a designer and I'm only a designer, but I'm a designer who can also understand the power of management and business to express that power. So these were kind of things that we thought were some early conclusions to what Brigitte was looking at. Of course, this doesn't do full justice to 40 years, but wanted to leave it open to Q&A from folks. Peter, do you have something? It seems like you have a question there. Want to give you the chance to ask.
I don't know if I have a question. I'm just grappling with the word design because it can mean so many things in so many different contexts. And if you don't bound different types of design and then compare them, things get confused really quickly. And I'm wondering, Brigitte, kind of how you handled the
I have, you know,
the nebulousness that is design.
Yeah. People are always asking me, you know, but you have been a researcher. By the way, can you give us the definition of design? Now I have a very clear definition now. It's just a profession of the designers. And this is it. So because, you know, what is a doctor? What is medicine? Is my doctor. Because otherwise, you know, I mean, for years and years, we had, you know, agenda, let's have a strategic seminar and something. We planned one day strategic seminar or something, and then half a day was about the definition of design. So please, let's stop that. You have 40, now nearly 100 of research about what is design. There are, in my thesis, there were 83 design decision definition. I said, I can do nothing with something that has 83. But in a way, you bring one or two design thinkers that are actually common to everyone. Everyone would agree on about 4 or 5 of them now, and that's our field. That's the way we design in design science. Because the main thing about being strategic is that this is a collective responsibility to defend our space in science. It not only in techniques or something, you know, in science. And when you go to science and academia, you have models. You have, 4 or 5 thinkers that everybody agree on, and this is now with my students. I have, Simon, and now I don't see the way. Well, I had the 3. I can send you the slide there. About it was all about reflexive. I forgot the name. I'm sorry. That's getting older. But they're very, very. It's maybe take 3 or 4 models, and then you have what it is to be a designer.
We're having an active set of comments in the chat. I think the issue is design is not a profession. We haven't defined what it means to be a design profession. And so it's hard to say that design is what designers do, because what designers do is not well articulated, with the exception of architecture. That's the only profession within design. The rest of us are just making it up as we go along.
Yeah, but again, I think it's a lack of a conversation with academia. Honestly. How many times, I was a teacher in strategy and marketing. I was having conversation with the people that were actually developing strategy in companies. And I was also having conversation with my peers that are publishing in strategic management. And that was a 1-year systematic review. How many of you do that? Okay. Now I know a few of you do are actually, yes, doing it, but very few of you, very few. And there is no other way. I'm sorry to say so, but the only way, if you want to go at the executive level, is science. There is no other way. If you want to be trusted, if you want to be respected, you have to be able to give evidence, measure KPIs, and all that stuff. Now, not all of you, there are many that don't want, oh, please don't know figures. I hate mathematics. It's not a question of mathematics, it's a question of measure. It's totally different. It can be a qualitative measure, and the marketing people do that very well. And I'm always very surprised that designers are not interested in actually looking the way these marketing people measure brand. You have people that is interbrand, they have their measure of branding every year, and where is design in the KPI of the interbrand? Well, I can think that most of the designers in the world are actually very active in brands. I think you don't care. It's, but that's okay. But then it's difficult for me to agree that there is no definition of design now. If there is no definition, well, okay. But difficult, but it is true. When you go to a dinner, you say, I'm a designer or something, most of the time. Here in Metz, trying to explain design to the mayor it's very difficult. But if I bring a designer in front of him, suddenly it's real. So after that, you can, there are different types of doctors and a lot different types of designers, Some are more in the artist and applied art, some are more in the technology, some are more in human science. And I have, this semiotic model by Pierce, which is very clear, very simple. It's a triangle. It's any kind of shape. It's 3-dimensional. So you can change the 3 forces or something and get your point in the space that is different. But at least you can explain, you have a model, you can discuss. if you, again, theory matters. I mean, theory you can change over the years, you can update, you can, but at least, please, for me, my feeling is that we need more of that. We need more of some kind. The last book that we are going to propose to you was just about the conversation I did with a strategy consultant about that, you know. Why is it that after 40 years of evidence, there is still the same question? In a way, I must have been very, not efficient in the way I've done my research. You know, maybe that was not books as we should have done. What should I do now to actually design? So you understand that there is something there that is actually the development of the space in science.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Okay.
Brigitte, I'm
Yes.
going to note this one as a follow-up. You know, you talked about theory matters. You talked about measurement as the basis of management, and also the bridge between academic sciences and industry. So I'm going to note that one down. I know we're over time. Does anyone else have any parting thoughts, comments, questions? Clearly, we needed much more time for this one.
Well, I'll say something. Brigitte, you are incredible. Thank you so much for all of your time and even more all of your insights and all these years of bringing together such hard work and helping us define design and what design means. One thing I thought was really especially interesting, the last thing you said about theory matters, that was very profound. I'm also very curious on your thoughts on how design should impact sustainable development, particularly as it relates to impact as well, and the organizations and their sustainable development strategies, especially with like the SDGs. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Maybe talk about that for the future.
That's why, you know, instead of saying user-oriented, I like the idea of life center. Because then you go to, you know, to actually do both, and it could be you mix a circular economy, which is more technology oriented or something, with actually social science and ethno design. And for instance, I work in primary forests, for instance, and of course people think that you are planting trees, and I say no, you are planting brains. You know, you are planting. You are actually designing an artifact that is explaining to the people that live near the forest what the world is actually, where the world is actually going. So it's you know, it's saving energy and working on carbon, but it's also changing the mind of the people that are actually living near the park, and making them, you know, collaborative and doing the co-creation in the process. And if you don't put designers in this kind of project, it's going to be a silos again. You know? I think the whole idea of your value and your power, about, you know, Marie K. Follett, is about, you know, this ability to make people work together. I've observed that so many times that, I mean, in management, we have been like that. You choose finance or you choose marketing, and then people fight for budget, you know, I mean, and you know, so of course, top management is very interested by mindset that can actually set, instead of the R&D department and the marketing department, you know, fighting on innovation, having designers saying, let's have the focus on the people and maybe on cost and something, and then you get the dialogue between the two, because otherwise there will be still fighting for many years. Time management is one of the things that was so interesting for me. The way, you put designer in a team, suddenly you used to have, innovation that takes 3 years. Now it takes 6 months. Why is it? Well, because you make a prototype, you use this kind of, iterative process and things like that. So instead of having, this steps and steps and steps and steps in innovation and decision and things, it's more agile and less time, and we have measured all of that. So whenever it's difficult to convince people, I believe that we are useful because you can say, well, it's published in the Journal of Coordinated Innovation now for 20 years. Okay. You see,
Yeah.
Engineers are doing that. Marketers are doing that. Why is it that we are not proud of the results of our peers in terms of efficiency for people and things?
I think, Brigitte, if there's one takeaway here is, I think unlike our peers, we're really bad at using the science of design. And I think crossing that bridge will just enhance the credibility, plus also the less, I almost call it civil fighting between design practitioners themselves, because the lack of theory. So I think that's a great concluding comment here, as we're at 10:10 overtime now. So I just wanted to respect people's time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so take away or something, or could we explain that people can get my book and
Yes. So follow-up next steps. We're going to set up a feedback form and follow-up emails. One of the things we're including is a gift, which is Brigitte's book, Design a Business Case, to all of you. There's 100-some pages of amazing research and science in there. And we're also going to leverage the newsletter that we're spinning up called the Design Executive to further socialize science content information for all of you. And so watch out for that email. We'll send it to you right after this event. And so thank you all for your time. It was such a pleasure to have this conversation. As we can see, it got juicy very quickly, and I learned a lot out of this. So thank you all for joining today.
Yeah, thank you. That was lovely.
Thanks, Brigitte, for your time and all your hard work.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Theo. Bye, Mitt. Bye. All right. Let me pause the recording.
Well.
Yeah.
You did very well.
I'm going to stop the recording. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll see you soon.